Hello everyone, welcome to the video solution for the BoxxFitness case. This is a classic profitability case, and the way it's designed right now, it's interviewer led, but that's also because I want to direct your attention into very specific areas of the case. The name of the case is BoxxFitness, the industry in the case is fitness. And the key skills tested in this case are the absolute core of case interviews: structuring and hypothesis generation. With that, let's go into the case prompt. Our client is the CEO of BoxxFitness, which is a leading gym chain in the US, and they have over 1,500 gyms. BoxxFitness is a premium gym concept, and their annual membership fee is 2 to 3 times higher than most mainstream gyms. And why is it higher? Well, each gym has a limited number of membership slots. Each member gets a dedicated locker, unlimited personal training, unlimited classes, unlimited equipment usage. However, in the last 3 years, the chain has seen a decline in its profit margin. Now, can you identify the potential reasons for this decline? This is what the CEO of BoxxFitness has called us in for. So the key question in the case is, can you identify the potential reasons for this decline? Let us run with that and let us see how we can solve this case. Now, the suggested mindset for this case is more of a practice rather than a mock interview. So I would recommend that you try and attempt this case alone by yourself, the way it is designed. If you want this to be run in a mock interview style, feel free to contact me. If you want to do it with another Prep Lounge member, just ensure that the member has prepared the case well, because there are many details in the case that need to be taken care of. Now, in terms of approach, let's try and understand how this case is going to work out, right? The key situation in the case is that profit margin is declining, and we need to diagnose. But although the prompt does provide some information, but it's only a minimum vital information about the chain. It doesn't talk much about the declining profit margin, right? So when you have case prompts that are very slim, very lean, make sure you ask a good bout of clarifying questions. Most candidates, they don't ask enough clarifying questions, and they make mistakes in the case. The best candidates ask the best possible clarifying questions, and they completely open the case before they've even started working on it. All right. So don't hesitate in asking very silly questions up front as well, like absolute basic ones as well. How does this gym earn its revenue? I mean, probably that it's going to be the membership fee, but ask, what are the sources of revenue? It's fine, right? At least you will know what are the sources of revenue, and you'll be able to hypothesize what could be wrong with the sources of revenue, so go that basic. So let us look at some clarifying questions that could work in this case. I have listed down about 6 questions here. You can come up with more. You can come up with a different set. The reason why I have written these 6, I've also given you a rationale for why these questions are good, or why these questions will help us in the case. A lot of candidates ask questions which are not relevant to the case prompt. So keep the case prompt in mind, right? The case prompt here is profit margin is down, right? So let's think about the questions. What are the key revenue sources for the gym chain, right? Membership fee, what else, right? And this tells us the key revenue sources. If we know the key revenue sources, we can hypothesize what could be wrong. Second question is, what are the various services provided by the gym, right? That may be incurring a cost. Maybe some of the services have become more expensive for us as a gym. this could potentially lead to a profitability decline, right? Has there been a fundamental change in the company's policies? Now, obviously, this is a very broad question, but it's also a very essential question that most candidates miss, uh, because it can give us an indication of internal changes, right? Um, the mistake candidates do is they push this question for far too late. They try to incorporate this somehow in their framework, but it's a clarifying question, and you got to ask that, because usually policy changes, strategy changes can have a very long lasting butterfly effect, right? So a simple policy change could end up hitting your sales because the incentives probably changed out, something like that. Then obviously the fourth question should be around competition. Has there been any change in the competitive landscape? So the question before this was an internal question. The competitive landscape one is an external question, right? And then let's go to the customer preferences, right? I mean, do we know if there's any change? I mean, obviously it's a clarifying question at this point. The answer to this from the interviewer could be in the form of an exhibit as well, but we need to check quickly that, look, have we looked at it actually? Because if there is a change in customer preferences, um, clearly it's going to negatively impact our revenue. Right? And obviously one of the key data points that is missing in the case prompt, but is talked about, is the 2 to 3 times higher membership fee, right? So what is the fees of BoxxFitness? And let's the answer here is around $449 a month, right? Let's look at some of the answers for the other questions as well, right? So what are the key revenue sources for the gym? Includes membership fee and sale of food and beverages. What are the various services? Now, if you're asked what are the various services, I mean, the first thought process from the interviewer should be to push the candidate into coming up with the ideas. Some of these ideas may be applicable to BoxxFitness, some of them may not be. So a better approach would be to suggest from an interviewer, from a candidate's perspective, a better view would be to suggest, okay, what are the services? Training, F&B, equipment maintenance, valet parking. So if you suggest and if you leave the interviewer with only a yes or no discussion, then that's good. All right. In terms of change in policies, yes, there has been an introduction of 2 new kinds of subscriptions. There's a quarterly subscription and a lifetime subscription that have been introduced 3 years ago. So that clearly should send a signal to the candidate that there is a possibility that the solution of the case lies there. All right. So keep that in the back of your mind. Change in competitive landscape, no major change, right? So no acquisitions, no drastic changes around segmentation. Around customer preferences, the way the case is designed, premium gym market has been growing at approximately 5% a year, but in comparison, mainstream gyms have been growing at 12% per year, right? So let's let's keep this in mind, right? It may be useful later on, because it clearly shows us that the premium gym market is not growing as fast as it could be. All right. Very cool. So those are clarifying questions. Now let's go into the first question for the case. How would you structure your approach, right, to the question? And what I want you to do as a candidate at this stage is to take a time of about 2 to 3 minutes to draw out your own structure, your own framework, because even though you're going through the solution, it's good to first get your view in and then see what you could have done better. Sometimes I've even found that there are candidates who will structure a case better than the sample solution, right? Because there's no right or wrong answer. So take a crack and have faith in yourself. All right. What I want you to do is pause the video right now, take 2 to 3 minutes, draw out your framework, uh, take another 2 minutes to say it out loud so that you also practice how you're going to say the framework to the interviewer. Then come back to the video and let's see how a sample framework would look like. So now that you're back from drawing your own framework, let's look at the suggested process for structuring. I believe it's typically a 4-step process. There's going to be a top-level framework. There's going to be a high-level framework. There's going to be a hypothesis-level framework. And then we investigate the hypothesis, right? Now, it may seem a bit too complicated and evolved, but trust me, when we go through the process, you'll see it's super organized and it's super organic and it's highly intuitive. If you understand this approach of making a framework, you'll never probably have to remember another framework again, right? The terms top level, high level may not be super clear to you right now. Just bear with me. We'll go through the steps one by one and you'll see what I mean, right? So let's go to step 1, a top level framework, what I like to call as the level 1 framework, all right? Now, a level 1 framework is supposed to be the highest level framework in terms of logic, right? And the framework needs to address the case question. The case question here is the profit margin is declining. For the profit margin to decline, there could be any reason, right? At the highest level possible, we know, and we can look at these diagrams at the bottom, we know that either the revenue could be going down, which could be lowering the profit margin, or the cost could be going up, which could be lowering the profit margin, or a combination of both, all right? And this is what we've done here at the top level, right? Now, I want you to notice, right? And this is a very important note for at least for beginners, right? The initial instinct for beginners is to always look for data, to always try and analyze something. But things need to be done kind of the other way around. You need to hypothesize what could be wrong, and then you need to validate that with additional data, right? So here we are hypothesizing that either the revenue could be declining or the cost could be increasing, either or both of the above, right? That's our hypothesis. That there's nothing else that can reduce your profit margin. That's it, all right? So we're just speculating based on the basic concept of profit, right? Which is profit is revenue minus cost. So that to me is a level 1 framework. It's a top level framework, right? Let's take this to the next step and let's go into a high level framework. So notice that when we are making a high level framework, we're adding a little bit more detail to our top level framework. In our top level framework, we have revenue could be declining. In our top level framework, we have cost could be increasing. All right. And now we need to zoom in and we need to think about why could the revenue be declining, right? In the top level one, we had thought about why could the profit margin be declining. We go one level down. Why could the revenue be declining? And you go to your classic profitability style logic. The volume could be declining, or the price could be declining, or either or both could be declining, right? I want you to understand that in almost every sample solution on the internet, when they talk about profitability framework, they will write volume and price. So what is it different that we're doing here? What is it different that I'm telling you? The difference is this sentence right here, right? Most sample solutions will simply talk about volume, price. They'll not tell you how to elucidate it. They'll not tell you how to discuss it. The statement that you need to think about is what could be wrong with the volume. The revenue is declining, so obviously volume could be declining. And in this case, the volume, as we have established through our clarifying questions, would comprise of members, right? It's a gym. Their volume is members. Their volume is not newspapers sold. Their volume is not tickets sold, right? Again, in terms of price, there is one price is the membership fee. The other price is the food and beverage sales. So what we have done here is we've said combined, the average revenue per member could be declining, right? So those are two hypotheses for revenue. Those are two level 2 items for the revenue. Now the cost could be increasing, right? And why could the cost be increasing? Now this is where case can be solved in 1,000 different ways, right? You could go fixed and variable cost. You could go directly cost by cost, like a list. The ideal scenario is to come up with a structural breakdown of costs that is messy, simple, and easy to understand. And I would like you to practice different ways of structuring cost structures for different cases. In this particular case, it's a gym, it's a fitness chain. And what I feel is the easiest and most foolproof way of splitting costs is to go member related, gym related, and corporate, right? So basically what I've done is member is the smallest entity in a fitness chain, gym is something larger, and corporate is the entire company, right? So we're going outwards where we are expanding our scope, right? And in each stage, we're only taking the costs that are in that specific bucket. Okay. So this is my way of splitting. Now, notice that I haven't really broken down what could be the member costs. I'm going to think about that in a moment, all right? What could be the gym cost? Let's think about them. But first, let's just drop the buckets here, all right? That helps push the thinking process further. So this is our level 2 framework. Now let's go into level 3. Level 3 is going to be hypotheses, right? We're going to go one level down. We're going to identify different ideas for the different trends that we have mentioned in level 2. Okay. So obviously, in revenue could be declining. We hypothesize that the volume could be declining. Now, why could volume be declining? Right? Now we need to come up with ideas, and the ideas should be out of thin air, should be out of common logic, should be out of intuition. And that is a hypothesis, all right? So the hypothesis here is, number one, perhaps fewer customers are preferring BoxxFitness's premium plans, right? Absolutely easy to crack. Perhaps fewer customers are preferring to pay annually, right? Maybe they're just dropping out. Perhaps there's another competitor. No, that's siphoning our customers. Or there could be that perhaps this is valid only in a few locations, Now, keep in mind, this is not the ultimate list of hypotheses. You can come up with probably 2 times more as well if you give them thought, right? My supposition to you is I want you to understand how I have written these sentences. I want you to understand that the main problem most candidates do is they don't write down their framework in a hypothesis style way. So each statement is starting with the word perhaps, right? And you can go through the other items as well. I'll leave that to you. If you have any questions on why I've written a certain hypothesis, feel free to write back to me. Let me quickly go through the commentary on hypotheses. Okay, so I want you to understand how all the sentences in the hypothesis started with the word perhaps. All right, because they're all hypotheses. Now, one of them could be true, more than one of them could be true, or none of them could be true, right? It could be something entirely different as well. Now, we're just proposing, right, based on our understanding, based on what we have, the information we have gathered so far, right? In order to prove or disprove a hypothesis, we will need to look at additional data, and then we'll be able to determine the actual reason. But that's how a framework works. Okay. Now, the other thing I want you to understand is the hypotheses are driven towards answering the main question. Okay. In the case, why has the profit margin declined? Right. That's the main question. So if you look at the different hypotheses, they are thinking about what could be wrong. Okay, they're not saying, let us look at the revenue, right? Let us look at the cost. You don't want to look at the cost. Okay, what are you going to do after looking at the cost? Tell me what you think you will find in the information on cost. All right, tell me what you feel is wrong with the cost. Tell me what you feel is wrong with the member revenue. That is hypothesis. Okay. And while you're doing this, always keep the case question in focus. This is one of the most important things you need to think about, right? And this is also one of the most common mistakes that candidates do. The framework becomes more analytical and less focused on the case, prompt. Okay. If you keep the case question in focus, you will not need to over-explain your framework ever. You will end up keeping the interviewer engaged, and you will impress the interviewer. All right. And obviously, if you do all of this, you're going to crack the case in half the time. Typically, you're expected to come up with a framework in about 2 minutes, right? And take about another 1 to 2 minutes to explain it. Now, you might be thinking, hey, how the hell am I going to come up with this in 2 minutes? Well, you don't need to write all these sentences fully. Clearly, that's not possible. But you need to write the key items, right? And you need to say them the right way. All right. You need to, people think about all these items. You will think about this, but I want you to say it with the right word. Okay. I want you to present it like a hypothesis, and then it'll make sense. Right. Now, the step 4 is going to be analysis. You have the framework ready, right? You just need to look at the right data and prove or disprove certain hypotheses in the case. Okay. And keep in mind, it is quite possible the ideas that you mention in your framework are all not valid, right? Probably the solution is completely somewhere else. So let's look at data. Okay. Let's look at the first exhibit, and let's see what the exhibit tells us. Now, this exhibit is around the US gym market in $1 billion, right? And I have, the way I've designed the case right now, I've assumed that we are in 2030, because 2020 was not an ideal year for any kind of time series graph. So I've just altered reality, and I've skipped to 2030. So that's today. Okay. Now this is the graph given to us. Now When you are presented with an exhibit, how do you need to talk about it? That is what we're going to see in the solution. It goes in 3 levels again. The first level is going to be pure observations, facts that need to be elucidated, right? So let us look at the different levels. Level 1 is going to be observations. So you want to look at the overall graph. You want to talk about the key observations that you're able to make, right? And one of the easiest observations that we can make is that the overall industry is growing, all right? If you're good at mental math, you will be able to see that between 2026 and 2027, there's a change of approximately 2.78 million, right? And if you think about it, 10% of 35 million is 3.5, 5% is 1.75. So 2.78 is between 1.75 and 3.5. So clearly the growth rate is between 5 and 10%, right? That's easy. So you can simply say, look, it's probably 7 to 8%. Okay. We're also able to see that luxury segment is the fastest growing segment. We can see that it's doubled. No other segment has doubled. So clearly it has the highest growth rate. But in terms of absolute value, we can see that the mainstream segment is growing the fastest. Let's look at level 2, right? Level 2 is going to be inferences. We need to see what are the different trends. So clearly in the premium segment, our client is growing slower than the other segments, right? You can see that the premium segment is growing at approximately 5% per year. And we've already seen that this one is greater than 5%. This one is also greater than 5%. The overall industry is greater than 5%, right? So clearly, the premium segment is growing slower than the overall industry. And as a result, the premium segment has also shrunk. Let us look at the third level, right? The implications. So this is something that is crucial in reading an exhibit. Okay. You want to look at your observation and you want to translate it into the case problem. Okay. And this is how you're going to mention it. You're going to say, since the premium segment is growing slowly, there might be some adversarial pressure on our client, thus affecting the profit margin. We should investigate further on how our client is performing within the segment to validate the hypothesis, right? Maybe, despite the slow growth in the premium segment, maybe our client is growing very healthy, right? We don't know, right? Let's look at this, all right? The other implication that we can draw is, and this is for the excellent candidates, is that the luxury and mainstream segments are growing faster. Clearly, there's a shift of customer priorities. So perhaps our client would like to explore competing in these faster growing segments, right? So that's how I would read the exhibit here, okay? Let us go into the second exhibit. The second exhibit is going to be one of the data points that we asked for in the first exhibit. All right. It's going to be the premium gym market. All right. And we can see that our client is right here. It's growing right here. Let us look at level 1 observations. Yes, there are 3 major players that have more than 75% market share. And our client is the second largest player. Simple observations. Level 2 inferences, right? Our client grew at 5% annually, which is the same as the segment. Hence, there is no increase in the market share. However, the two other competitors grew faster, right? That's the other observation. That's the other inference. And the smaller players were kind of struggling in general. Now, lots in level 3 is what does this imply for our client? The client growth rate is slower than the major rivals. We've seen that here, right? We need to investigate if the market pressure is leading to any profitability issues. So again, we're razor focused on profitability, which is the key problem, right? And we need to see that probably because of market pressure, they could be overspending or they could be undercharging. Okay. Then we also need to understand that our two competitors, they're doing better than us. So we need to see what they're doing differently. We should explore what they're doing and then try and see if we can implement that in our case. Let's look at the next exhibit. The next exhibit gives us the membership statistics, right? And we can clearly see in observations that there were two main membership models and two new ones were introduced. And this is something that we were able to gather from the clarifying questions as well. And we can see that quarterly memberships grew the most, right? They went from 0 to 85 members per month per gym, right? In terms of inferences, we can see that the membership grew about 5%. But after that, it grew fast, right? It grew approximately 10% per year. Now, monthly membership is growing steadily at approximately 10 members per gym per year. But the quarterly membership has increased much faster. But the quarterly membership has cannibalized the annual membership, which is the implication, right? That's not good for the client. Now, if you've seen the exhibit 2 already, you can obviously hypothesize that, look, total members are actually growing at 10%, which is whereas the revenue is growing only 5%. So clearly, we're giving away discounts, or clearly we are charging less per member, right? This is leading to lower overall revenue growth. Feel free to drop me a message if you don't understand why this has happened, right? But in order to see if this is really creating a problem, we need to see if where the exact revenues and costs are going, all right? We need to see what are the average membership fees. We also need to see what are the average costs. So let us explore that further. The next exhibit gives us the average revenue per member from the membership fees. We've been given the base fees as well, and we've been given the actual fees as well. Now, straight away, first observation, monthly memberships cost the highest, right? Which is normal to expect. In terms of inferences, we can see that monthly memberships have been progressively discounted, right? We can also see that quarterly memberships actually cost less, even though the base price of quarterly memberships is 5,000. So they should actually be here somewhere, but they're here, right? So clearly there's a heavy discount that is being provided to the customers. Now, that's the implication, right? BoxxFitness has been discounting its monthly and quarterly memberships to grow its membership base. Now, while this has, and I want you to understand that this is not me simply writing a case solution. This is how I want you to talk about it. This is how I want you to explain it to the interviewer, right? That the BoxxFitness has been discounting the memberships to grow the base. While this has helped in achieving the member growth of 10%, it has also led to a slower 5% growth of revenue, right? Now, The other implication is that the faster member growth and slower revenue growth due to discounts could have led to higher costs, right? Because more members are coming in, and that's the only thing that's changing. So clearly the costs that would have gone up would have been member related. So let us try and investigate the trends of various cost items for BoxxFitness to see where's the real problem, right? Let's look at the graph. This is BoxxFitness's cost structure, and we can clearly see up front that member-related costs are growing in share of total costs. So they're 30% in 2026, but they're 34% of total costs in 2030. The profit margin has also declined from 20% to 15%. In terms of inferences, member-related costs are growing by 10% per year, right? That's this. That's this one, 0.5 to 0.56 to 0.63, right? Other costs are growing only at 5%, right? So the total. In terms of implications, now we can see that growth in member-related costs is 10%, which is actually higher than the growth in revenue. Clearly, this is a bad recipe for declining profit, all right? Hence, BoxxFitness should explore letting go of the discounts, or it should try and optimize its member-related costs. It works both ways. Maybe they want to continue with the discounts because that's how the competition is. In which case, the only solution for them is to optimize the costs, right? This is how implications are going to be for this exhibit. Now, finally, I would like you to summarize the case. I want you to take 1 minute to collect your thoughts and write down the summary and conclusion. It should take you about 1.5 to 2 minutes to speak it out. This is how the summary has been designed. Let me know if you have any doubts on it. The one thing that I want you to understand is there are different sections. This is the initial case statement recap. This is the analysis that you've done. This is the finding. This is the diagnosis. This is a potential next step. This is risks. All right. Do this in 1 to 2 minutes. The case is yours. That's about it. Thank you very much